Cincinnati's ready for the Big 12. It was time for them.
I am fired up.
It's a blessing to be able to be in this league with y'all, putting on for UC.
Cincinnati, a basketball school for...
And there he goes. Touchdown! Bearcats!
Raquama again. Another slam inside.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GoBeercats podcast, part of the Catskeller Social Club. I'm your host, Brandon, and our Big 12 road trip, the off-season series, continues on this evening. We have, right from the jump here, if you're watching on YouTube, we have not just two, but now three guys from the Lupton Drinking Club of TCU. So, gentlemen, go ahead and introduce yourselves here, and we'll get this show on the road.
Yeah, Brandon. Hey, how's it going? I'm JD. I'm the co-host of our podcast, Postgame Beers. Our group is the Lupton Drinking Club, but our podcast is called Postgame Beers. And yeah, I'm the co-host.
I'm producer extraordinaire Ray Cartwright. I'm the face of the LDC. People know and love me.
I shouldn't have invited him.
Hey, Brandon. I'm Martin. I mostly talk about box scores and numbers and stuff.
Well, he's our soul of stat, Brandon.
Beautiful. Welcome into the show. This is the eighth installment of this series. So the eighth sort of fan base or podcast of a team that we've reached out to and talked to. I've got a lot of great feedback on it from Bearcats fans, as well as some of the other groups of fans that have tuned into it as well. So I'm anxious to learn all that I can about TCU this evening, and hopefully you guys are ready to educate Cincinnati fans on a team that we were almost conference mates with once, but then kind of pulled out of there. But hey, it's all good now. It was inevitable, I guess. And the way you guys are the Lupton Drinking Club, I love the name. If I can get a beer pun, Go Beercats. I've had on Ears and Beers, Wide Right, Natty Light. If there's a beer pun to be had or collaboration, I'm all about it. So what we do here around here first is something called Time for a Beer. So this is brought to you by the Delhi Liquor Store. They have you set, whether it's a party, tailgate, or anything in between, bourbon, cigar, wine, or a beer on the way home. This one is actually not from the liquor store. I had went on a little bachelor party road trip this past weekend up to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And this is from Cheboygan Brewing, which I just love to say Cheboygan. This is a blood orange honey wheat ale. So cheers, gentlemen. If you guys are drinking anything, tell us what you're sipping on.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. So I have here the Finnish long drink. Have you ever heard of this, Brandon?
I have not.
Okay, so this is an actual liquor cocktail in a can. So you can only buy it in liquor. Laws are up in your part of town, but here in Texas, you can't buy liquor in a gas station or anything like that. So you have to go to a liquor store to get it. But it's basically gin and juice in a can. And I'm drinking a strong citrus at 8.5%. It's fantastic. You should try one.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Now, me, I've broken into a little bit of the brown drink, but I have an unusual drink concoction where I like apple juice and ginger ale combined together.
Are you an old lady?
And then you throw a couple shots of whiskey in there. It's pretty dang good. This could be the new Arnold Palmer. Be on the lookout for this.
What do you call it?
I haven't thought of a name yet. TV, I'm workshopping it.
Well, there you go. Martin, what about you?
I'm not drinking anything right now, but I went to Grand Rapids, I think 2 years ago. It's really cool, actually.
We had a heck of a time. This is the first beer I've had since Saturday. We'll see how I do because it was a rough weekend.
Now, being up in Michigan this past weekend, did you remind them that they're an island?
No, I did not. I was drunk more than sober for the 48 hours that I was up there. So my cognitive abilities were not necessarily on par. So
we've been arguing with the state of Michigan for the last 6.5 months or so. So got a little trash talk.
Good. Yeah, I could see why. I could see why. Stomped them into the semifinals there. Nothing wrong with that.
They're still coping too.
Dude,
I'm
did you
sure
see
that they are.
There was one guy today that said that the college football playoff didn't even happen. He said
No,
the Big 12's never even won a CFP game.
Ray, there was a literal Michigan fan that said, when was the last time the Big 12 has won a college football playoff game? And then he quickly deleted it.
Wow. Let's before we jump into football season and everything, I like to ask the guests, how did the podcast, the Twitter handle, the Lupton Drinking Club, how did that sort of form? What's the history behind that there?
Yeah, so long story short there, Brandon, is we're all huge baseball fans. So that's kind of how we all met. We started going to the games and, kind of got tired of watching them by ourselves. So we knew each other from Twitter. So we started arranging to meet up at the games. And then we formed like a group text. And then we kind of, it's one thing about TCU sports coverage is, we cover basketball and football. I mean, TCU media as a whole, they cover basketball and football really in depth, but there was really nothing for baseball. And we, at that point in time, we had been to Omaha 4 straight years. So us being huge baseball fans, we kind of got tired of waiting for somebody else to give us baseball coverage and said, screw it, we're going to do it ourselves. So it's kind of evolved from there. Now we cover, all sports, but we really cut our teeth at baseball. And that's the only sport we'll claim to be, kind of semi-educated, amateur experts in. So.
Very nice. Love it. Very well. That sort of answers. Usually I like to ask guests what's, if basketball and football are 1 and 2 or 2 and 1 at a university, what is that third sport? So it sounds like it is definitely baseball for you.
I think basketball is actually our third sport.
Okay.
I think most fans would agree. It'd be football because just sheer popularity. Sure. Baseball's had the most success. I don't know. Yeah. Would you guys disagree?
I'd say basketball is about on par with baseball, if not slightly ahead. Just since they've gotten good.
I think
these last 2 years, Schollmeyer's been electric.
Oh, you're talking about basketball?
Yeah, he says basketball's ahead of baseball. I disagree with that.
No.
In terms of popularity?
The last 2 years. I mean, we're talking about like the last 20 years, right?
In terms of popularity.
That's the way I would base it.
Yeah. I mean, I think baseball has been – I think baseball and football is definitely what we're the best at. But I think compared to everybody else, I think we've had more baseball success compared to every other team in the country than we have football success compared to every other team in the country.
I'm following. Yeah, I agree.
All that to say, we're just an everything school.
That's true.
That is kind of our new brand.
Very nice. Yeah, that's not the you guys are not the first ones that said that on this series. So you guys might get a kick out of the guys from Baylor thinking the same thing.
Oh my God.
What?
They don't even have a baseball program. Get a real baseball program, then you can come at us.
Get a real football program. We literally can't stand them. That's not a fake rivalry.
Gosh.
We cannot stand Baylor.
So, as being one of the from a fan group of one of the 4 new schools, that's kind of something that I definitely wanted to set out and learn more about. Unfortunately, I've learned that there's I don't know if there's any or not a ton of trophy games, but sort of feeling out the rivalries in the Big 12 has been one of the best parts about doing this series. The K-State Iowa State rivalry sounds like a great time, and this TCU Baylor is kind of up there with it. So, I mean, would you guys say that's your only rival, or you got any other budding ones? Here as of late as well.
So we have Texas Tech, and I think most TCU fans would agree. And I think most Texas Tech fans would agree. But there's a faction of Texas Tech fans that like to think of themselves as, in this state, there's A&M, there's Texas, and Texas Tech. And then you have these fans saying, our rivals are Texas, OU, Texas A&M, baby. And they're just fooling themselves. They're not on the same revenue level or nationwide popularity. They're more along the lines of Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor. And, yeah, it's a real rivalry. No matter what those fans will say, TCU Texas Tech's a good rivalry.
And we have a trophy. We have the West Texas saddle we play for every year.
And we share a namesake with them, Eamon G. Carter. A lot of good history there, but we don't have to go into that. But yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, they're very similar schools, you know, from a lot of different aspects.
Very good. So, I mean, if you guys are, if we're thinking more, we're staying on like the broader type of Big 12 topics here. What are your guys' impressions of Brett Yormark so far as commissioner?
Better than Bob Bowlesby, that's for sure.
My man's killing it.
I think Martin probably follows a lot of these headlines the closest. Martin, you want to answer that one?
Well, so it was Bob Bowlesby was the one that really jumped on expansion and added these 4 new teams. That was Bob Bowlesby's doing. I might catch a little flack for this, but I thought Cincinnati and BYU were like the clear best 2. I really wasn't a fan of going and adding 4 with Houston and Central Florida. But, you know, that was Bowlesby. And then, you know, since then, we kind of got a lot of flack about we're a G5 conference, blah, blah, blah. I think Yormark really did a great job about flipping the narrative and going on the attack and, you know, making everybody's now – you know, when he first started, it wasn't like it was like everybody thought of the Big 12 as a G5 conference. Now everybody thinks of the Big 12 as the clear 3rd best conference in the Power 5.
Let's say in the discussion for 3rd best, ACC is still pretty good.
Dude, there's still people out there saying the Pac is better.
Oh God, don't think he was started on those Pac nerds.
I know, it's wrong.
The thing about the ACC is literally the only thing keeping them together is that grant of rights that's extremely long, and they have a really cheap contract. And the only reason they would stay together is because ESPN is going to do everything in their power to keep them together so that they can keep all that cheap content. As soon as that grant of rights ends, they're going to jump to the Big 10 and to the SEC. So the Big 12 is more stable than the ACC and the PAC. And they make more money than the ACC and the PAC.
And I would argue they have more success than either of those conferences.
Not the ACC. I mean,
well, yeah, they do have. They have Clemson, and if you go back far enough, Florida State, but
Miami, Virginia
Tech. Miami hasn't won shit since they were in the Big East.
Still big name.
What does that matter? We're talking about success.
You know, still gets eyeballs on TVs.
Well, I think another like part of success is you're going to have to add into all of the college landscape is the NIL and how that kind of, you know, can bring people in or get people talking. And I think Miami they have a pretty solid NIL, and they've probably had a solid NIL collective going since about 1985. So, yeah, I think I mean, who doesn't want to spend 4 years in Miami? They should be better. Who knows?
I know. Plus, they get all that Colombian product smuggled in.
Yeah, there's a lot of rich boosters out there working in exports.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. I think Yormark has done a really good job sort of flipping that narrative, and you know where he goes next in expansion. Not, you know, if but when. It kind of seems inevitable. You guys have a preference on should they expand? Sound like, you know, you didn't want them to go 4 at the beginning. Should they expand now if the Pac-12 crumbles? And if so, you guys got a hierarchy of who you'd like to see come over?
Yeah, if the Pac-12 does fall apart, if you can get any current Power 5 teams, then yeah, go for it. What do you think about the basketball thing? Like, he wants to add all these basketball schools.
I've on this series and online everywhere, I've said many times, if I never have to interact with another UConn fan again, I am more than happy. They are a miserable group of people. So I'm not a fan of adding UConn at all. Gonzaga, it just seems so weird and sort of doing that hybrid basketball only type of conference, right, like the Big East was back in the day. Yeah. You know, plenty of terrible memories from that falling apart. So I'm not a fan of the basketball only schools. But I mean, if you get a school like Arizona, who has a rich basketball history, maybe they're not the best in football, but I would take sort of that Power 5 with that basketball pedigree any day. Out of the Pac-12 schools, for instance, I mean, I think Arizona is probably the most attractive, assuming you can't get Oregon and Washington.
Yeah, I think out of the most realistic schools, I think it's Arizona and Colorado. I would obviously take both of those schools. I really like Arizona just because I'm a baseball guy, and Arizona is more of like a baseball like power.
Mhm.
So I really only like Colorado because of their former Big 8 rivalry lines, but they don't have a baseball team, so that kind of gets a knock from me. I would really love Arizona State, but it seems like they kind of made a deal to get into the AAU to stay in the pack or something. So I don't think that's going to happen. Did y'all have any opinions?
No, dude, you're the realignment. You're the realignment king. I kind of stay. My take on realignment is, let me know when the deals are done, and then I'll judge it from there. I don't like to get into the speculation or the theories of it all. It makes me too tired. Martin does all that for me.
Make Colorado bring back baseball or get a baseball program. Then we can talk about Colorado.
And then the G5 options, do you have a preference? Because I think it's like USF, Memphis, and like Boise State or something. I don't know if they don't really do much for me.
They're all kind of gross to me.
USF would terrible. I mean, I think the American Media Day polls came out and they're picked last in the New American, which is kind of bizarre. Memphis, I honestly wouldn't mind Memphis just because I loathe them entirely, and I have since I was probably like 12. They have I wouldn't mind being in the same conference and hating them again. I could see the reason why people wouldn't want that, and so I don't know. I think probably out of those three, though, I would probably take them over. Definitely way over USF. Throw Boise State there in the middle somewhere.
The thing is, since football kind of runs everything, like what G5 school would you say is like they have the facilities and everything else to, make that jump? I mean, I guess Boise, but I don't want any part of Boise. I hate Boise.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Memphis has solid facilities. I mean, they have
yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, I don't think, and they have all that FedEx money as well, which is appealing to sort of get things done. But I don't know what sort of value you're looking for in bringing in more, group of 5 schools.
I guess if it comes to a point where you need inventory to keep up with the Big Ten and the SEC, like if they're up to like 20 schools each and you got to pick somebody, I guess I could see it then.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm going back to a basketball-only school, which kind of fits in the geography of everything, would be Wichita State.
Kansas and Kansas State would not allow that.
Oh, well, I mean, but it kind of fits. Yeah, fits in with everything. But yeah, you're right. If Kansas, we sort of have that sort of mentality about Ohio State, like if it's not good for them, it's not going to happen at all. They're talking about like NIL laws. I think in Texas they have to sort of submit, or it's public record how much an athlete makes. If I'm correct about that, there was like talks about that in Ohio, and I think some Ohio State boosters shut that down real quick.
I'm not sure what the NIL law is and how it applies to if that's a public school thing or private. Because I never hear direct figures on what TCU guys are making.
That might be. That could be true. Let's, we've sort of danced around the topic here. I know we don't, we as Bearcat fans, we kind of avoided the top of the Big 12 in football this year, which I'm thankful for in this year of transition. We don't have Texas. We don't have TCU. We don't have Kansas State, and we don't have Texas Tech on our schedule at all. And even though we're not coming your way this year, I think it's still important to sort of, learn about game day traditions or the game day atmospheres around the conference. So can you kind of some of you paint a picture of what game day is like at A&G Carter Stadium and what the sort of the sights and sounds of it as well?
Yeah, I guess to start, we have a brand new renovated stadium. that looks super, super cool on the outside and on the inside. I think it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing stadiums in the conference. I mean, it's certainly one of the newest. Now, something to keep in mind that I think catches people off guard when they come to visit is how small TCU is. So if you're looking for, the massive SEC tailgating scene, you're not going to find it. It's a good tailgating scene, but it's not going to overwhelm you with volume, tents upon tents, huge parking lots. It's a small, intimate kind of atmosphere. A lot of the students do house parties. And then, the young alums and, the older alums too, they'll tailgate, but it's a small, intimate scene. It's a lot of fun. I think if you stay away from the K-State fans on Twitter, then you'll probably learn that TCU fans are very welcoming and friendly.
For the most part.
Yeah, and if the team is good and, the crowd is into it, it's a really, really electric atmosphere during the game. Do you guys have anything to add to that or argue with?
I'd say it's kind of like it's a big social party, to be honest, tailgating at TCU. Everyone's pretty dressed up.
Okay.
Polo, shorts.
Oh, that is true.
It's a big social gathering. While yes, we are a small school, everyone knows each other. I think before I'd gotten into media, I would, me and Jacob would bounce around between 2 or 3 different tailgates at a time, leading up to a game.
The game day attire up north, is that like jerseys and like cargo shorts and stuff like that?
Overalls.
Yeah, overalls.
We're not that far east as to West Virginia.
They do wear overalls.
But I can't say that. Actually, there are some game day festive overalls now that you say that. I've seen guys in striped red and black overalls, nothing like no shirt on underneath of it, that type of thing. I have seen that now that you mentioned that. But yeah, it might be t-shirts, polos, jackets, and gloves because it's freezing in late November, early December. Some polos. I'm trying. I'll probably wear like a t-shirt and just regular khaki shorts. I've not worn cargo shorts for quite some time. But yeah, there's jerseys as well. You'll see people wearing basketball jerseys, jerseys of guys that are in the NFL as well. So yeah, it's a wide mix. Definitely a casual dress code.
Yeah, Brandon, I will say this. When I was in Glendale for the Fiesta Bowl and we were, kind of mixing it up with the Michigan fans during the tailgates, I had one guy comment, okay, so Michigan fans, they're wearing like Michigan hoodies or jerseys or T-shirts. TCU fans are wearing like, the girls are wearing these super nice dresses and the guys are in collared shirts. And the Michigan fan was like, damn, are y'all going to prom or something? Like, is this what y'all normally wear?
Yeah, that's funny. Prom. Yeah, I've kind of heard that. I think that's like a sort of like a Southern tradition, right? Like there's TCU probably not the only school that does that in the South, but it's hard to wear those nice dresses or short sleeve polos when it's. I've been to games where I've worn 2 pairs of pants, a t-shirt, a hoodie, and a jacket standing out in the snow. So that'll be sort of interesting for some of the teams when they come in late November if we have weather like that coming in.
Hey, Brandon, I hate to stop you, but we're getting an echo. Are you hearing that on your end?
Yes, I am now.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop your momentum, but
you're good.
I hope it's not me.
Well, I think it's all of us. Whenever we talk, we all echo. So
yeah. Something's reverbing.
Jake, it's something a professional broadcaster would fight through.
Well, yeah, I can fight through it. I don't know if the listener can.
I don't know if it'll help if when we're not talking, if we mute ourselves, if that would help.
Oh, I hit mute when I was trying to talk. Yeah, I've been playing with the mute button to see if that helps, and it still sounds the same.
With all
sound
three,
echoey there.
yeah, with all three of us muted, JD, while you were talking, it came through fine on my end.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to go back 15 minutes and repeat everything we said.
We will persevere and push on here.
Persevere. Okay, sorry about that. I just didn't want it to ruin your recording.
It's all good. It's all good. Where were we? What we were talking about? We were talking about dressing up, severe weather, and playing through it.
This is where I think TCU being in the South, we'll get a couple of cold weather games maybe there. November's a wild card. It could be 80 degrees. It could be 30 degrees. I remember we played Baylor the day after Thanksgiving in a monsoon. It was 35 degrees outside, pouring rain. Or it could be sunny and 80.
Yeah, it was a miserable game, but at least we won.
Speaking of winning, you guys did a lot of that this year. 13-2, right? Played for a national championship. Sort of, and kind of out of nowhere, if I can, throw that out of there. I mean, you guys had Sonny Dykes coming in, right? We Bearcats fans familiar with him and his time at SMU, which I know that pissed a lot of people off, right? Him sort of making that transition over there. But I mean, that's a almost a dream season. A lot of things going your way. Won a lot of awesome games. Take us through what that was like for you guys this season.
Yeah, it's real interesting because a lot of people had us picked, at most middle of the conference, 6-7 wins. I know some people had us picked last for some reason. Even some TCU fans who were kind of discouraged by the end of Gary Patterson's run. They weren't too optimistic either. I will say for our pod, we were probably more optimistic. I know Martin and me specifically said 10 wins because we knew the kind of talent we had. We recruit, behind Texas and OU, but better than everybody else. So we thought, if we split with OU Texas and then, maybe only lose one more or two more along the way, we can win 10 games. Now, of course, nobody saw going through the conference undefeated. We did have a little, the ball bounced our way sometimes. I think some of our close games are a little bit overstated. It was a lot of times where, we're up by 17 with 3 minutes to go and a team gets a garbage time touchdown. And then everybody's like, oh, they only won by 10. Like, okay, yeah, but we were pretty checked out when we were up 17. So it was a lot of that. But like the Oklahoma State game, we were down big and came back to win in overtime. The Baylor game, we got their best absolute shot, of course, and we pulled that one out. But, it was a really talented team, and Sonny Dykes did an awesome job of kind of reestablishing the culture after he took over for Gary Patterson, and I think that's really what made the difference.
100%. Not to mention the Kansas State game. That gave us a little bit of a heartburn there, too.
Well, we kicked their ass in the second half, though. I mean, it was towards the end of the third quarter. We had that one. Huh?
We were still down 17 at one point.
We beat them by like double digits.
Yeah. We took command of that game. It was over like halfway through the fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah. When they're trying a field goal, because it was really windy that day. When they're trying like a 50-yard field goal right into the wind, and it goes 20 feet to the right, then you're feeling pretty dang good.
Now, we didn't talk about the Michigan game. I don't know if you were going to ask that next or but
yeah, go on. I mean, that was, I feel as though a lot of people discounted TCU very quickly in that game, maybe just because it's, the Big 10 over the Big 12 or whatever. And of course, TCU did not back down at all. It was a hell of a game.
Yeah, well, I'm not really upset we were underdogs. I mean, we're severely, if you just look at recruiting, I mean, it was the biggest upset in college football playoff history. Like at recruits like Michigan, and we don't recruit bad, but Michigan, they recruit up towards the top of the country. So, to beat guys with that much skill, I don't blame anybody for thinking Michigan was going to win, but I think TCU really excelled at being a complete team. And, the sum of the parts are greater than the individual parts, if that makes sense. And when you have a leader like Max Duggan, who's, the toughest guy I've ever seen play college football, next to like Tim Tebow, and he had a lot of experience. He was a 4-year starter, so he wasn't going to be scared of the moment. And then you have JJ McCarthy, who's super talented but young. I mean, I think we had an advantage there. I think we had an advantage in coaching. So yeah, we pulled it off, and it was the best sports moment of my life.
The thing about that TCU team last year was the continuity on the offensive line. I don't think that gets talked about enough, where they pretty much had the same 5 starters for every single game, and they were really good. They finally gave Max Duggan protection, which he had not had his previous 3 years. He was always scrambling, running around for his life.
And then we had an offense designed around Max Duggan's strengths, where previous offensive coordinators were trying to force Max Duggan into a square hole, designing an offense that didn't really fit Max Duggan's game. So we made it, Max friendly, and he ended up in New York.
Now, Brandon, you as an outsider, obviously Cincinnati went to the CFP 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So y'all know what it's like to get there. What was y'all's impression of TCU's run through the entire college football playoff, right? From, the Michigan upset to, of course, what happened against Georgia.
Yeah. So, I mean, I probably didn't really take probably didn't show up on my radar until after they beat Oklahoma. Right. I think
that's pretty early in.
Yeah, but Oklahoma was still, I think, in the top 25 at the time. People thought that they were still going to be Oklahoma. Turned out they were not last year. And then I know I watched the Kansas State game because I really liked Deuce Vaughn. I thought he was like an electric player this year. And whenever I got a chance to see what he could do, I tried to do that. And then the Baylor game you guys mentioned, that was pretty the Michigan game with my dad. For some reason, I feel as though because he lives like 2 hours away from me. For some reason, I feel as though we watched it, and he's like, he was an Ohio State guy for like 30 years, so he was like, let's watch Michigan run through these guys. I was like, I don't know if that's going to happen, Dad. And then that was an electric game. And then in Ohio, we had just got sports betting on January 1st, so we got the tail end of the bowl games or whatever. So that was one of the first games I bet on, was the national championship game. And I luckily I took the over. I just didn't, I didn't expect it to, achieve the over.
Didn't expect Georgia to get the over by themselves.
Yeah, I was not prepared for that really. But that Michigan game was an absolute shootout. I know as Bearcats fans, when we played Alabama in the college football playoff the year before, I would have loved to experience a game like that, even had we lost the game. Scoring a touchdown would have been pretty phenomenal.
Can I say something about that game without getting hate mail?
Please.
I was disappointed in Cincy in that game. And not that y'all lost or whatever the score was. I don't really care about that. It just really seemed, and I didn't watch a ton of Cincy ball that year, but I watched that game really closely. And it looked like Cincy's game plan was keep the score close so that we don't get made fun of like TCU will one day against Georgia. Like, we're not going to try to win. We're just going to try to manage the game and make the score respectable so we don't get made fun of.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because you're not the first person I've heard say that. And, for all the great heights that Luke Fickell took us to in his short tenure here, he did have a tendency to play it very conservative at times. We could go back to the Peach Bowl against Georgia the year before when we should have won that game.
I forgot about that one.
Should have won that game. It was all but done. And some other games throughout the way here that it was that sort of like I would. He's a Big Ten guy. He was very conservative. He's not an offensive minded guy. He's defense, right? And his OCs while he was here probably didn't do him any favors. But yeah, so I kind of agree with you. Once that first series went down, and I remember it. Des Ridder went down. He had like 2 or 3 passes, or one. It was a miscommunication with Alec Pierce, just wide open in the end zone, and the ball just didn't land anywhere near him. And then he got like 2 or 3 balls swatted down at the line of scrimmage, which I had never seen happen to a 6'4" Des Ridder before. and then after that, it was just like, just don't get killed. So yeah, that was brutal.
Well, so I was thinking about this today, and this point hadn't occurred to me, and I may be forcing this point in, but I wanted to make sure, to say it is. So we got shellacked against Georgia. There's no question about it. But, for anybody that's making fun of us for it, like, we're not really bothered by that, because beating Michigan felt like winning a national championship to us. So, we're not hurt by the Georgia game, but I'm wondering how many teams had to play Georgia 1 week after crashing helmets with Michigan for 4 quarters. That's a really tough back-to-back. And I just never really, that thought never really occurred to me till today. Like we beat Michigan, but man, they beat us up. I mean, they're tough. They're big. They're strong. And now we got to recover and go play Georgia.
Brutal.
We
draw.
never had a shot, guys.
Brutal. But I would take. If you said the Cincinnati Bearcats went back to the college football playoff this year and they were going to play Georgia or whoever else, and they were going to lose 65-7 or whatever it is, I would say sign me up for that this year and next year and the year after. I'm good. Please. The ride along was fun enough. Going to Notre Dame, beating Notre Dame. It was that was kind of maybe a little bit similar to what you described the win over Michigan to be. Brian Kelly, our former coach here, he said something along the lines of, it's really nice that we give teams like Cincinnati an opportunity to play at Notre Dame, and then we went there and kicked the shit out of them. So.
Yeah, that was us going to the Big 12. I remember
that's the Texas mentality.
Yeah, year one in the Big 12, we go to Texas, and their fans were like, "Oh, it's just so nice having you guys in the conference." And we went out there in Austin and kicked their ass that night. And that was the last time they said they were glad to have us in the conference.
But it's funny that you say, sign you up to lose 65-7, because Cincinnati, I think, my opinion of Cincinnati is that they're winners and that their fans like to win. Well, you see all these other fan bases in the Big 12, for the most part, they're losers, like Kansas State, Texas Tech. Like, they don't know what it's like to win.
Baylor.
Cincinnati, Baylor. They don't know what it's like
Texas.
to have skins on the wall.
Texas.
Cincinnati, since 2008, they've been to the Sugar Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Cotton Bowl. They've done stuff. They've been to the college football national playoff. Texas Tech hasn't had a 10-win season since segregation. So
no, they had one. They had Crabtree.
Okay, they have one.
Yeah.
So that's why we get a lot of flack from those. Oh, SMU as well. We got a lot of flack from them about how embarrassing that you lose the national championship game. But Cincinnati, they actually know what it's like to win. So I respect your opinion way more than theirs.
It's well said. I completely agree.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I definitely take it. I learned through this that Iowa State's never had a 10-win season in the history of corn. So that's tragic for them.
We didn't hear much from their fans. At least I haven't.
Well, they were so bad last year. They didn't really. They couldn't really chirp.
But Baylor won 6 games.
Yeah,
but I guess they could have won 0 games and still talk trash. So
I think we beat Iowa State as bad as Georgia beat us.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, Jordan Hudson scored 2 touchdowns against Iowa State.
And I think okay, so our main rival this season was Kansas State, and we'll see how that goes in the future. But I think Iowa State fans were siding with us because they hate K-State so much. So they were kind of backing us.
Yeah, and all the Kansas fans too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've also kind of learned through all this. That they're like, what do the guys call it? It was like, they'll you guys will sort of like jump on with each other, collaboration or something like, K-State fans or Iowa State fans piling on with you guys. I've heard that there's some collabs between fan bases, and that's something I'm looking forward to learning more about as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. You guys as an outsider, it may be like, I don't know, because don't y'all kind of hate the new schools that are coming in with y'all?
Houston, we don't mind because they have like 3 fans total anywhere.
Right.
BYU, we've played them a couple of times during the Tuberville eras, which didn't go well, obviously. But yeah, we hate UCF.
Yeah,
we've only
So
played
do we.
them. We've played them 8 times, and it's like we've known each other since the beginning of football. So it's the series is tied 4-4, and that probably has something to do with it. But yeah, we'll argue about anything online.
Well, you can ally with us against UCF for sure.
Always, yeah.
And then we'll see what happens when TCU and Cincy plays each other. We might end up hating y'all. We'll see. I don't know.
I don't think so.
We will see.
Dude, speaking of that, isn't it wild that TCU and Cincinnati have only played each other 3 times historically, and not since 2004?
When they were in Conference USA?
Yeah.
But we didn't spend much time in the Conference USA, right?
No, we didn't.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. So you talk about UCF. I think Texas Tech, Kansas State, and UCF are all really the same thing as far as how their fans are on Twitter. UCF has actually won something as opposed to the other 2, but I don't think we're going to have an issue with Cincinnati and TCU fans once we actually do play each other, because I think it's going to be similar to like West Virginia, where nobody really hates West Virginia as far as
That's a good point.
the original Big 12. I don't know if Cincinnati hates West Virginia or if these other schools are going to hate West Virginia, but nobody in the what do they call it? The Hateful Eight. Nobody hated West Virginia.
No, that's true. The only thing about West Virginia is dreading going to Morgantown every other year.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of like
wouldn't
West
s-
Virginia is your annoying little brother. Or that family relative you have to go see
Yeah, more like
once a
second
year.
cousin.
Yeah. You have to go see, and they're awkward, drink too much.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been to Morgantown. I really enjoyed it there. But yeah, they're so far removed from, I think going to visit other, going to away games, I think that's where fans kind of develop some of their hate. Like I go to Lubbock every time we play there. And I don't hate Tech because I have family from Tech, but if I take that away, I would hate Tech. But like I go to Baylor, I hate Baylor. I don't know. But going to West Virginia just once and we beat them, it's hard to really hate them. And they don't have a lot of history in the Big 12 either. They've had a couple of decent seasons, but
Yeah, I don't know if UC fans will hate West Virginia. The series between us and them, it dates back quite a ways, and they actually they've ran away with the series. I think might have only beaten them like 4 times ever, which not something I'm proud to admit, but we'll be very familiar with each other. When we, back in the Big East days, their fans would travel well to Nipper, and then UC fans going to Morgantown. It was, close enough to drive, make a weekend out of it. So I think you're kind of right. When fans sort of intermingle at games, you have the opportunity to hate each other a little bit more, and we'll eventually get back to that.
West Virginia was elite in the Big East.
Yeah,
they're 16-3 all time against West Virginia against Cincinnati.
But yeah, I think between TCU and Cincinnati, it could be the same way. Like, there's not a whole lot of overlap as far as interaction goes, and we just dread going to away games up there because, man, I've watched those games at night. Everybody's wearing black. It's loud as hell. Boy, that looks scary. And like Martin said, like y'all have a history of winning too. So man, that could suck.
Yeah, nip at night. I would encourage anyone from any fan base to try to experience that once. You know, I mean, our stadium's smaller than yours. You guys are at around like 45,000. Nipper, you know, a little over capacity is probably just at 40. But you know, there's not a bad seat in the house. It's right in the middle of campus. It's dug into the earth. Like you're not walking up steps, you're walking down.
Oh, it's like West Virginia.
Yeah, and it's I should know this, but it's like the third oldest field in college football or something.
Have they renovated it?
So in 2015 they added a new press box and like a upper level and some suites. Okay. So in 2015 it got a major facelift, but still very old, very historic. I do want to.
I was gonna say, I'm definitely looking forward to going to a road game there, but I'm not touching that damn chili. Keep that away from me.
I've been asking about that as well. Yeah,
and so people can send me hate mail for that. I don't care. Bring it on.
That ranges everywhere. I would recommend starting off with a cheese coney.
All right, now we're talking.
You don't have to throw it over spaghetti noodles. You know, day one. Definitely. I mean, hot dog, chili, onion, mustard, cheese on top, some hot sauce. That is the way to get acquainted with Cincinnati style chili.
What was the thing at the Reds game that they sell a slice of pizza around a hot dog, wrapped around a hot dog?
That I can't speak to that. I've seen it. So the hometown pizza place here is La Rosa's, and which is I guess the pizza version of Skyline. So you take the two food brand names, and there's people putting a cheese coney on top of pizza at the Reds games. I've not tried that. I actually never witnessed anyone do that either. So I'll stay away from that.
Are you a Reds fan?
It's a complicated question.
Well, they're like first place. What do you mean?
Yeah. Because it's funny how things change, because at the beginning of the season, everyone's demanding that, that Bob sells the team, boycotting, losing just to save money. You know, we want to be competitive, and the ownership just didn't seem to have any sort of, interest in doing that. And then, wherever Ellie De La Cruz comes from, the baseball gods sends him here and things. He's one of the most exciting baseball players I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, that's I've watched more Reds baseball this season than I have probably in all my other years. Just because
we like the Reds. I mean, I wouldn't say we're fans, but we want them to win because like half the roster's from TCU.
Okay.
So,
we want
did
them to
you
win.
know that you have so many TCU players on the Reds?
I am not emotionally invested in the Reds like I am the Bearcats, for example. So I did not know that actually, but I'm sure there are diehards around here that did for sure.
What is the bench coach's name? Freddie Benavides?
He's not going to know that. He just said he's not emotionally invested.
Oh man, he's been there like 10 years, but
You're right.
Also went to TCU.
You're right, Martin.
Yeah.
This is a Bearcats podcast, not a Reds. Who even brought up the Reds?
You did. You said
You
did.
Well, let's get back onto the topic that I know a little bit about. The Reds I can't speak to too much. I can speak to the Bengals probably more than I could about the Reds.
Do we have any frogs on the Bengals? I don't think so.
Is Andy Dalton still on the Bengals?
No. He is not. No, yeah.
Since moved on.
Since moved on, yeah, for sure.
Best quarterback in Bengals history, that's for sure.
By far, it's not even close. Not even up for debate.
Legend.
Yeah,
build a statue.
Statue I don't know about, but people still think of him fondly for sure.
He's a great.
It was Marvin Lewis that ruined Andy Dalton.
Yes.
Right.
That people would probably agree with you. Agree with you about that around here. Talk to me about basketball though. You guys not 22-13 this season. Give us sort of what was it? Correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Schollmeyer Arena. Tell us what taking in a game like that is like, because we do have you guys as a home and home in basketball this year.
Yeah, Ray, I'll let
Jacob
you take that
quickly Googles TCU basketball. I'll
but
tell
Ray,
you.
Ray, you go to the games.
I do help cover the team. The atmosphere was electric this year. More so, though, it's, kind of sounds fair weather to an extent, but I mean, it really gets going whenever you have Kansas and Texas come into town, of course.
Texas Tech, too.
Texas Tech was weird this last year because it was on the same day
that's true.
as the Fiesta Bowl, and that's when we opened conference play. So it was probably a 50-50, 40-60 TCU to Tech fans because, man,
we were
New Year's Day, they ain't got nothing going on. Why don't they go watch a basketball game? They're not playing. But the Showmire's really electric. They do a really good job with in-game presentations. I mean, they'll bring these huge fire shooting machines out. The student section's really into it, and they can get really rowdy.
Yeah.
Heck, West Virginia tried to fight the student section last year. That was a fun game because that was an ice game. So they only students could go, really, if you want.
Sorry, Ray. I was just going to add in a lot like our football stadium, Schollmeyer's brand new renovated. It looks immaculate. You have the TCU Hall of Fame right inside the doors before you kind of walk into the seating area. I don't want to guess, but it's one of the smallest arenas in the Big 12, we're a small school. But when the team is decent and we get a good opponent, it's electric. But I think it lacks behind baseball and football as far as fan interest and attendance. I don't know.
Man.
It feels like that to me, but I could be biased.
If you were to have gone to the Texas, Kansas, Baylor games this last year, you would say differently.
Oh, no, Ray. I've been to big games there, and it's absolutely top notch. I'm just saying game in, game out. Instead of cherry picking like the absolute marquee matchup, if you just take like the average game and compare it to the average game against football and baseball, I think it's third among the three. As far as energy and interest and excitement goes.
I don't know. The student section shows out for just about every game where they don't do that at baseball.
Yeah, the student. Yes. Okay. Yeah, the students in baseball definitely. That's not great, but overall fan base wise, the students are incredible in football and basketball. I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to go to a game there, Brandon, but it's just not like we're in a basketball conference. And Kansas, it's their number one sport. Houston, it's their number one sport. I mean, you could even argue like Iowa State, it's up there with football just due to success. Who else?
West Virginia, maybe.
Yeah, West Virginia. That's a good one.
Well, until Huggins got drunk and decided to drive all over town.
Yeah.
Baylor and Texas Tech.
Oh, Baylor and Texas Tech. Yeah.
But you take any of those schools but Kansas, and I guarantee you they would take a winning football season over a top-notch basketball program.
If that's not going to happen, then they focus on basketball.
So I really only have two questions left for you, gentlemen. Certainly appreciate your time as we're kind of coming up on the hour mark here.
So off track and arguing with each other.
It's all good. I'd like to know what's a sport that TCU doesn't have that you would like to see them add?
Softball or men's soccer?
Definitely softball.
I'm good where we are. I don't care. I'm good.
Jacob hates fringe sports. I am a champion of the fringe sport.
Look, I just
either that or wrestling because the Big 12 is so good at wrestling.
I wouldn't.
Wrestling would be cool, dude. Wrestling matches are a lot of fun. I did it in high school.
All right. I'll say ice hockey.
You're the second person that said ice hockey. That's
Give me
hilarious.
The Frosty Frogs.
The guy from the Kansas Rock Shock blog said ice hockey as well. That's funny.
Yeah, we have a club team I think that's pretty good, but yeah. Let's go win a Frozen Four, baby.
Very nice. I would probably say softball. Probably softball. Bring back men's soccer. We had it until COVID, and then they cut it. But wrestling would be fun as well. I think some Ohio boys could probably come through and make it interesting sometimes. But I promised you guys a gambling question to sort of end things here. So I think I know what you all say. I've asked all the podcast guys the same question to end this thing. So this question is brought to you by the Bet Stamp app, one of our new sponsors for this season. So it not only allows you to line shop so you can find the best odds over all sports books, but it also tracks all of your bets in one place, so you don't have to flip through all of them. Download the app and be sure to use the referral code GoBeercats. Now, that being said, if I give you guys Texas and TCU or the field to win the Big 12 in football this season, who are you taking?
Yeah. Okay.
TCU.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking Texas and TCU.
The field.
Ray says the field.
All right, who are you picking, Ray?
I mean,
I
give me
swear to
either
God, say Kansas State or Texas Tech. I'm coming through this phone.
Oklahoma.
All right, I can accept that. Even though they don't have it, they have like the 8th best quarterback in the league. Good luck.
I just believe that Oklahoma hasn't been down bad like they were last year since the 90s.
But other teams haven't been this good.
Yeah. I mean, you could see some regression. Texas would be a worthy challenger to that. I kind of, it's kind of weird, right? Because I do kind of buy into the Big 12 doesn't want Texas or Oklahoma winning the Big 12 on their way out.
100%. Yeah.
Let's be real. They don't want that, but they're not going to fix games.
Well, you might see a holding call that looks a little sus.
That's not really fixing games, though. That's just kind of, I don't know.
It's not fixing, but it's not fixing.
Yeah, all right. That's fair. I'm taking Texas and TCU. I think Texas has the most talent in the league. And, if you're just looking at it straight from a forward-looking gambling standpoint, because people say, oh, when was the last time Texas did anything? Well, it doesn't really matter going into this year. They're independent events. It's not like Texas starts down 3 games in the standings because, of a bad history. So
Good point.
Everybody's 0-0, and they have the most talent.
Did Ray just say he doesn't think the Big 12 will let the teams leaving win the conference and then pick Oklahoma?
I said I could see Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a talented team.
I scared him away from picking Kansas State.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
I was going to go Tech.
God,
Tech.
mighty.
They're gonna roll through the Big 12. And they're gonna go get your guns up. Pew 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 pew.
Probably BYU with all them 30-year-old men they got.
Nobody has more success in the future than Texas Tech. Hire Cliff Kingsbury. The future is bright. Matt Wells. I don't know, but Kirby Smart.
Matt Wells brought discipline to the program that they were lacking.
Holcut's the AD. Yeah, Holcut. Trust Holcut. He knows what he's doing. Matt Wells for the future. And now they got what's Jerry Maguire? What's his name?
Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
Yeah. So now Tech fans are like, yeah, we know we've sucked for the last 20 years. We're looking at the future. Well, y'all been looking at the future for 20 years. So if Tech wins 8 games, I think they should hang a banner.
Gentlemen, this has been very fun. I love the hostility that you guys, show towards these other fan bases
and
each other.
And each other. Sure, why not? Love that too. Definitely appreciate it. So give us if Bearcats fans want to follow along, where can they find you on social media and where can they find the podcast?
Yeah, at Lupton Beers is our Twitter. That's where we're most active. We have an Instagram. Go ahead and follow it. Sure, you might get an update every now and then on there. But yeah, Twitter is where we're most active. So at Lupton Beers. The podcast is Postgame Beers by the Lupton Drinking Club. It's on any kind of, hosting whatever. Ray's the producer. He has all that fancy tech speak. But I will say this, Brandon, I know you're not a huge Reds fan, but for any of your listeners that are, we have a good interview with Nick Lodolo. I don't know what episode it was, but it wasn't too far back. So if anybody wants to check us out, I would say start with the Nick Lodolo interview. That was a lot of fun. He's a good dude.
Good stuff. Very good. I'll push that. I'll find that link. I'll put that in the show notes here for Bearcats fans as well, because I know they're super involved in all of Cincinnati sports, even though I might not be as much on the Reds. But gentlemen, I certainly appreciate your time. This was a good time. I hope to collab in the future as well.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Certainly. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Go Frogs.
Thank you, Brandon. Go Frogs.